All right, we're back live, but after a couple weeks hiatus, there was no UFC events. It's like a little time for everybody to recuperate, if you're into the recuperating thing. But yeah, we come back to UFC Vegas 80, Bobby Green versus Grant Dawson. We'll get into that in a couple of minutes before we jump on to the card and recapping and reacting to everything that happened, because there was a few things that was kind of odd. There was like controversial decision. We always have those. We had some fouls that were never called during the fight. Extremely late stoppage in a fight as well. We'll jump into all of that. Get deep in there, like a surgeon, and yeah, man. Hopefully, you guys will enjoy it. If you guys have any comments, questions, anything, put it in the chat. If you're watching live, if you're watching the playback, drop it in the comment section, and we'll react to it, or maybe we'll pull it up next week. Before we get into the main event, make sure you guys go in the descriptions and download the AllStar app. We'll be utilizing the app during the show every week. If you're new to the show, we promoting the app, right? J Spec, he's holding the app in his hand. He has a league that's going on as well. There's what we have, I don't even know, like 8,000. We're getting close to 10,000 people on the app making picks. Be one of those people, right? And win prizes. J Spec has the best league, so join his league.
I wanna take that and say thank you, John, for saying that, and I wanna tip the scales a little bit. If you're not already interested in a super well-crafted app, for all the reasons John already said, then come play with me. Make picks in the UFC. You can win this. This is the prize for the month.
Oh,
a 16 by 20 autograph photo by Demetrius Johnson, all verified, certified, and all that good stuff.
It's beautiful.
So boom, best picker of the month will win that.
Where can you win things like this, right? Without even investing any kind of, funds. Like, you just make picks, and if you get lucky, you get a Demetrius Johnson autographed, authenticated poster. So there's nothing better than that, and it's all with the app. So download it. If you guys are just into like other sports as well, soccer, like what is it? The European soccer leagues, NFL is popping off right now. Basketball, NBA, all of that stuff is there. So
NHL's about to pop off soon.
Yeah, customize your app and use it, right? That's all we want. The main event, let's get into it right away. It only lasted, 33 seconds into the first round. I was looking at the stats, right, of the fight. And it's, let me put it on the screen right here so you guys can all see it. And then we'll start with Mike and his reaction to how the fight played out. Grant Dawson threw 6 strikes, landed nothing. Bobby Green threw 11 strikes, landed 7, and one of the shots dropped. I think the first shot dropped to Grant Dawson, and then the other shots just came afterwards as the ground and pound ensued. Mike, Grant Dawson, his first main event in the UFC, takes a massive risk by fighting somebody outside the rankings, and it doesn't work out. Whenever it doesn't work out, we have, a lot of people jump on the fighter saying that you're stupid. You why'd you take the risk of fighting someone like Bobby Green? But, every fight's a risk, right? And I'm pretty sure the UFC just offered it to him, and he just took it because why? You want a main event. You want to be in those spots, right? Even if you lose, you still experience the main event. You experience that. So later on, when you become a bigger fighter, because Grant Dawson's going to be around for a long time, it's only a hiccup in the road. Mike, react to the fight and what you saw.
Yeah. Well, Grant Dawson, 29 years of age. And if you've watched his fights, he typically, like a dog on a bone, gets right to the grappling. And we didn't see that right off the bat. Within a few seconds, I know you got to keep your opponent honest, but he ended up getting caught, dropped, and finished rather quickly. I'll be honest, wasn't very shocked because I know you had Grant Dawson as a massive betting favorite, but the reality was, if you go back and watch all of Dawson's fights, he is kind of a sitting duck on the feet there to be had. And Bobby Green came and was slinging some leather quick and ended up dropping him. But I ended up having a bet on fight doesn't go the distance, and 30 seconds in, I didn't expect it to be that quick, but I thought personally that the path to victory was Dawson coming in wrestling, and he didn't get to it as fast as I thought he would have. So it was a shocker. Yes, I'm sure the apex, it took the breath out of the apex very, very quickly. And the ATT team, they're going to have to go back to the drawing board here. They have a very talented fighter, but he's going to be coming off of a quick knockout here. And you saw he was cut up after the fight. So Bobby Green, props to him. He came in, said what he was going to do, and pulled that off in dramatic fashion. So happy to see that happen. And how about that post-fight speech as well? What do you guys think?
I didn't catch the post-fight speech. J-Spec, could you react?
I wish I could take on the post-fight speech, but I'm running the spaces, so I'm unfortunately unavailable to hear the TV audio most of the time. But I can tell you this: there was definitely a shock amongst everyone. Everybody in the space who was voicing their opinions picked Grant Dawson. There's fanfare for Bobby, but it's incredible how shocking this was to a lot of people. Obviously, it's a banger of a knockout. It's 33 seconds. It's as exciting as you could possibly ask of any performance from anyone. So, with that being said, it is what it is.
Grant Dawson, man, he took the risk, and when you look at it now, it was a terrible risk to take. Mike said it best. If you look at Grant Dawson's previous fights, he does kind of become a sitting duck, but he's done well defensively. Covering up when he needs to, and utilizing his wrestling when he needed to get out of trouble. This time there was no time to get out of trouble. He was hurt off the first shot. It was almost like, I don't want to compare him to this fighter, but it's almost like Roy Jones Jr., how he would leap in, right? Because I think he caught him with the jab.
It was a switch stance cross.
Yeah, but it was just like, it was beautiful, like the movement, and his hands were low. Yeah, his hands were low. It's just, this is the game, and one little mistake, and you're sitting on your back, and the referee's stopping the fight. Good stoppage. You can't complain about the stoppage. Grant Dawson seemed like he was hurt. And I'm glad Grant Dawson experienced this, because I think it's better to experience it now than later on when the fights are bigger, because he'll be in some big fights eventually. He'll face off against the bigger names. But there's not much else we can say about the fight, right? It was 33 seconds. Can't say much.
Yeah. No. How much can you learn in 30 seconds, right?
Exactly, right? So it's, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, with that being said, to the people out there shitting on Grant Dawson, saying, "Oh, fraud checked and stuff," come on, man. Like,
it's 33 what's seconds. A fraud? What is a fraud check? Like,
thank you, bro. Like,
what does that even mean?
He's a good fighter that fought another good fighter and he got clipped. It's fighting, boo. Like, what do you expect? Like, I don't know.
It's weird. Like, yeah, the expressions that MMA has created. I don't know if MMA created fraud check, but it seemed like I never heard that expression until, the MMA world started saying it. Fraud check, and come on, Grant Dawson was undefeated in the UFC up to this point. There's a reason why he was undefeated. He's real high level. He's real good, and he's getting better. He just got caught, and in this fight, I think you could give praise to Bobby Green, but Grant Dawson, he got caught. You take the L, you move on. I think mentally he's pretty strong. Just by hearing the way he talks, he's very confident in himself, right? And yeah, man, he just moves on and fights somebody else. Somebody in the rankings, he'll be in the rankings. Bobby Green will be in the rankings now, which is a shocker to a lot of people. And one thing that could be a bad result from this, a bad effect from this result, is Bobby Green be getting matched up with somebody that's not going to be exciting, and him losing to that person. This is a major possibility, right? They could serve Bobby Green on a dish to somebody else. Because if you look at the matchups in the top 15, do you think they will give him Dan Hooker? Because Dan Hooker is the name that people are throwing out there for Bobby Green. I love the matchup, and it seems like Dan Hooker likes the matchup as well. If I was Dan Hooker, I would jump on that because why? Bobby Green will be ranked. He's coming off back-to-back wins. Tony Ferguson. Do you guys even remember that fight? Mike, do you remember the Tony? Like, I forgot that Bobby Green fought Tony Ferguson.
That was pretty recent. I mean, I remember Tony Ferguson holding his own early and then just kind of getting blown out of the water and choked out, which it's tough. It's tough to see. I know Tony's got a fight coming up in the near future, and oh man, it's the downfall has been pretty difficult to watch. But yeah, Bobby Green's got a few opponents. I've also heard, I believe Dan Levy mentioned Rafael Fiziev would be a nice return for Grant Dawson coming off of a knockout loss, but I know he's going to be on the shelf for quite some time in the near. Well, for this. Now you mentioned that that this was Fiziev's second knee injury that you were aware
Same
of.
knee. Same knee.
Wow.
He injured 3 years ago.
So.
And he just had surgery on Saturday, I believe. I was talking to one of his teammates because his teammate was fighting on Saturday. So I was talking with him. I think Friday I was talking with him, or Friday. Friday. And I asked him, like, where's Rafa? Because he was supposed to corner him. He's like, oh, he's in the hospital. He's going into surgery. Dude, ironically, his teammate Saturday morning goes and fights for the title. Guess what happened? Gets his knee ripped apart with the heel hook and loses against Ton Lee. That's just wild, right? So they're probably going to sit next to each other in the hospital, getting their knees fixed or something. I don't know. That's just terrible. But anyways, Rafa's going to be probably out for until 2024, maybe at the end. You know what I mean? If he does take it carefully and take his time. I think Bobby Green's not going to wait for that. I don't think Grant Dawson will wait for that, right? That's just too long of a layoff, right? So
yeah, I agree.
Get away from Fiziev. Let's talk about other people that are like actually ready to fight. Bobby Green, man. If you look at now, you got to look at the rankings and say, okay, what matchup? We said that Dan Hooker, but what about you? What's your suggestion?
I was gonna say, one, John, you're right on the pulse of everything, man. During the watch party, the people's instant reaction was, "Hey, what's up with Dan Hooker?" I said, "Oh, pump the brakes." Remember, the brother man just broke his arm fighting. Like, I don't know how soon you come back from that. People are like, "Oh, Dan's already punching." I don't know. Whatever. I'm not a doctor. Another name that got thrown up there was Jalen Turner. I don't know if he's booked or if he's already set up for anything, but those are the two names while watching live that people just reacted and go, hey, I would want to see that. The fact of the matter is Bobby Green is Bobby Green, dude, and he'll fight whoever. Like, he will take that soonest fight, like you said, John. He's taking the soonest fight. So it's literally based on calendar, not based on anything else, I think.
Yeah,
my prediction. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say he was looking great in that Drew Dober matchup until he got caught, and his chin's held up for quite some time. Man, and Drew Dober fought on this card as well. So
yeah,
I'm sure
we'll get into that. You know, there's a lot to talk about that. You know what I mean? Because that actually had a bunch of things ahead of the finish that we could kind of dive into. We'll get into it. A name that I'm looking at for Bobby Green, I think it would be a really good matchup, and it makes it interesting, I think. And he's looking for an opponent too. Is Moicano. Why not Moicano versus Bobby Green?
Wow,
that's a big fight, right?
I had on my screen pulled up. I was about to mention Renato Moicano right there. That's wild. Yeah, you're right on the money, John.
Yeah, Moicano's an exciting matchup, right? It's a matchup that Bobby Green will not go in there as like a really heavy underdog. Because I think a lot of fights, if he gets matched up in the top 15, he'll be a heavy underdog, to be honest with you. Like if you fought Jalen Turner, I think he'll be a heavy underdog because Jalen Turner can do everything, right? He can strike, he can submit guys. Like it's a dangerous matchup. He's long, lean striker, right? I don't know if Bobby Green could handle that, right? Playing from distance against Jalen Turner. But Moicano, he'll sit in the pocket. And I think that's what Bobby Green wants. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Bobby Green. Grant Dawson, people are saying Fiziev is going to be out. Grant Dawson, you know, there's a lot of like interesting matchups, but now, you know, he's kind of like jumped back a couple spots on the rankings. To be honest, like Diego Ferreira, he's number 15 right now. Why not fight him? I don't think Grant Dawson has fought him yet, or has he? I always forget like who fought who.
It's so
No,
hard, dude. There's so many fights all the time. There's no way anybody can truly remember everybody's
yeah.
career records nowadays.
It's crazy how he goes from pretty much like dominating Demir Ismagulov, who is, I believe, highly skilled everywhere, beats him, and then gets sparked by Bobby Green. This is the game that we're watching, right? This is the game that we're watching, and yeah, that's why we watch it, because you get these shockers. And Grant Dawson, man, you just got to go back and regroup, like Mike was saying. I don't know, when you look at lightweight, like you got Oliveira fighting next in a couple weeks. Gaethje's sitting there waiting for whatever he's waiting for, getting stoned. Poirier's waiting for whatever like big name that he can get, big payday. Because I think Poirier, he's pretty much out the door, as in like as a fighter. I think he's after that knockout. I think he doesn't have many fights left, and he's only gonna take the biggest fights possible, right? The biggest names like a Connor or whoever, or a title fight, which probably is not very close to. He's not going to be fighting for the BMF anytime soon. Chandler's sitting there waiting for McGregor, it is the oddest situation that a fighter is where you're waiting for another fighter to come back, and you don't know that they're coming back,
Yeah.
and they promise you that he's coming back, and he's
And
promised
it's
you that
late
he's coming back.
30s and the clock's ticking. Yeah.
Exactly, right? Like, how long are you gonna wait for this guy? They're gonna probably he's gonna probably end up fighting Gaethje for the BMF, probably, right? Just to make it up for Connor not even being able to fight. Gamrot, Mike, I wanted to get your opinion of Gamrot being the backup for UFC 294 against what is it? Oliveira versus
Yeah.
Mahashev.
Well, it's interesting because you saw the first round of Fiziev and Gamrot, and what can you really glean from that, right? And I believe Fiziev won the first round on the scorecards in that matchup, and here he is, sprung right into the backup role. Granted, I mean, I believe he could cause a lot of problems out there. Makhachev, though, is a very dangerous fighter, and I would not be surprised if either fighter misses weight, to be honest. I know Makhachev cuts a tremendous amount of weight, and you've seen Oliveira. It's been documented how much he struggles to get down to championship weight, 155 pounds. So if he gets thrust into this situation, it wouldn't surprise me. And you know what else wouldn't surprise me? If Manel Cap ends up being the backup fighter for the Pantoja Royval second iteration of that bout as well. So I'm glad that they have a backup fighter. And I'm sure we'll get into the Felipe Lin's Iwan Kudelaba situation and how that was pulled from the card at the last minute. It's tough to watch when the fight cards go down from 11 fights to 10 fights. But I think they should have fighters on standby. Remember Seth Petrozelli? Remember how they were able to pull that fight
Kimbo
against Kimbo
Slice?
Slice together? Okay. Yeah. I'd like to see, especially if you're a paying audience member going to these fight cards. It's nice to have to know what you're getting into before you're going there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could invest in it.
Like, I love you, but you remember what happened after that? That Elite XC went out of business because Kimbo Slice got smoked by Seth Petrozelli. Like, so it's a very risky maneuver on behalf of the promotion. It's easier just to tell you, tough cookies. We got 10 fights versus risk one of their stars getting just demolished by nobody. Like that's terrifying.
Elite XC shouldn't have been putting all their eggs into the Kimbo Slice basket. That's just a big mistake by them, right?
You have that vision now in 2023. Back when he was the king of YouTube, the Kimbo Slice stock was way up. Everybody's buying.
Kimbo Slice was basically the original Jake Paul, right?
Yep,
like
pretty much.
He was the one, and Dana White hated him. Well, he didn't hate him, but he didn't like the whole concept that he had, right? Until he had the opportunity to make money off of him. Then he put him on the Ultimate Fighter and switched his tune a little bit, right? Which still a sleazy move, talking shit about somebody and then bringing them on to make money off of them, right? But it was an opportunity for Kimbo Slice, right? He got to be in the UFC.
Not the first
All
or
right,
last
rest
time
in
he's
peace
done
to
that.
Kimbo Slice, man.
R.I.P.
Yeah, but anyways, what happened with Felipe Lins, J Spec? You should have the inside scoop, right?
Man, that is the hardest thing to face. I don't have the inside scoop. I hope he's doing well. I messaged him. Haven't got a response yet. Mr. Lins, you know I love you, man. I hope you're doing well. The part that's puzzling me is I was talking with him 7:30 the night before. He was like good to go. So I don't know what happens. I don't know what happens in
Do you
between.
guys have any idea? Was there any news like released about this?
I have not seen any updates.
Nothing.
Nothing. Just
So it was just
but I can say, you know, historically, and I hope it's not the same problem, but he did have, like, in a previous fight, he had to cancel out, I don't know which one, years back, from sorry if the term I'm gonna mispronounce it, gastrointestinitis or something like that.
Yeah, whatever
Yeah.
like Brock Lesnar had.
Yeah, something like that. I think so. I hope that didn't happen again or flare up, or I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I wish none of that, but you know what I mean? We've seen plenty of fighters get their guts torn up from the weight cut process and all that. But he was good. The night before he was good. So
it wasn't like on Kutalaba's side or Lin's side. It's just like nobody knows exactly why.
it says Lynn's illness. That's all we got.
Okay.
That's all we got was Lynn's illness.
Hey, you know, fighters cutting weight, their immune system is vulnerable and they get sick. You know, and people are still getting COVID, dude. I don't think people realize it still, but there are people still getting COVID. So
Yeah.
maybe he got COVID.
I just wanted to mention for folks who play daily fantasy sports when they play DraftKings and they're working on composing their lineups, those lineups need to be submitted prior to the event starting. And it was announced, I believe, after the event started that the Lins Kutalaba fight was being scrapped. So all of those lineups ended up becoming dead, basically. If you're putting this lineup into different contests, there are contests from $1 all the way up to thousands of dollars, and you're creating these different lineups, and you have a $50,000 salary cap, and each fighter's worth a certain amount of money. So it takes a lot of time and energy to craft these lineups, and a lot of people were on the Kutalaba Lins fight because of the potential for a finish and high scoring. And basically, a lot of people lost a lot of money because that fight didn't take place.
Oh, that's shitty for everybody. You know what I mean? That's just in the that's why we use the AllStar app.
Yeah.
Because they don't have none of that nonsense.
That's a silly goose system.
Yes, there's no money you need to invest.
You do silly goose things, get silly goose shit.
Go in the descriptions, you know, like hit the link, download the app, make picks. We're making picks. You should be making picks. Make picks together on the AllStar app and join JSpecs League. Let's move on to the co-main event. Joe Pyfer. He seems to have a lot of hype behind him. He faces off against a guy that's tailor-made to lose to him. I thought. Mike, react to this.
Yeah, it was incredible to watch Joe Pyfer's wrestling and how he was basically to just have his way with Abdul Razak Al Hassan. Very impressive performance from bell to bell, and to get the submission. He put him out. And did you notice how Al Hassan choked? I mean, how he tapped at the end of the fight? He was with a closed fist tapping, and referee that caused confusion, and they didn't intervene right away, and he was rendered unconscious. So fascinating end to a bout. I personally haven't seen that before, where a fighter taps out with a fist, and it ended up costing him his consciousness there. So interesting bout, and the stock of Joe Pyfer is going to be continuing to rise here. He talks the talk and he walks the walk. So I know there's the potential for him to get his lights turned off at some point, because he's taking on a lot of dangerous fighters, and that's the reality that we live in. I mean, we talk about Grant Dawson and Bobby Green and what just took place. So anybody can lose on any given Sunday. I remember being in the arena when Nogueira lost to Sokaju as one of the biggest upsets in MMA history. And you find that button and it could get turned off. So I'm a little surprised at the trajectory of Joe Pyfer's career. I think that they are giving him some dangerous fights here. And you heard him, he wants another contract. He wants to get paid and get this ball rolling. But talented fighter nonetheless, and he's got a killer instinct, which you love to see.
Yeah, it's he's at like the perfect age. He's 27 years old, getting momentum. Um, he's 3-0 in the UFC, earned his contract um, against Diaz. If you look at the record, 3 in a row. You know, he's only went to decision once. All his losses are finishes, right? So that means he's gonna die on his shield. Joe Pyfer, man, interesting. Uh, I think you need more Americans. I think that's what's missing right now in the UFC, right? Is the American, what you call it? The American the prospects. Like, do we have a lot of American prospects? You know what I mean? Because the UFC loves to promote the foreign prospects, right? Like, you're from this country, like, because that's the market that they're trying to break into, right? But for the American market, is Pyfer one of the guys? Is he like one of the guys you think would be American, like made? You know, I'm not saying Kobe Covington American, but regular American.
I'll jump in and just say I think the way I look at Joe Pyfer, and please don't think it's an insult. I think Joe Pyfer is the UFC's plan B for their American champion. Their plan A is Bo Nickel. Plan B, Joe Pyfer. That's my
Bo
thoughts on it.
Nickel. You're right, Bo Nickel. I forgot about him. Yeah, he's gonna end up fighting for the title in 2024. It looks like, right? They're just gonna push him into it. But anyways, Joe Pyfer, without a doubt, he's violent. He loves to fight, and when you got a guy like that, he's gonna end. Like Mike said, he's gonna eventually not be the hammer. He's gonna be the nail, and it's coming, right? It's just seeing how he reacts to that, or even just getting hurt and coming back and finishing a fight. You know what I mean? Like showing that at a higher level. What is it? Abdul Al Hassan, right? This guy, he's been around for a long time, man. I think this is a big win for Joe Pyfer. Like Joe Pyfer is what 13 fights in, 14 fights in now, and he took on the veteran like Al Hassan and took him out, man, like pretty heavily. And going back to the finish, I thought that finish was late. You know what I mean? Like you're a referee. You've seen thousands and thousands of fights up close. You know when a guy is tapping and he's just like and hitting. Like that like he took so long to break up the fight that Al Hassan was on the ground convulsing. Did you see that? Did you guys see him convulsing? That's scary, man. Like if you're the corner, that's not what you want to see from your fighter. Is them laying there convulsing on the ground, right? It was scary. I don't know, man. Like to me, you know, Mike, you're in the medical field yourself. Is it scary to see something like that?
Yes. Obviously, it's not something that you see every day, but granted, I'm glad that they do have a medical team ready to respond as needed. It's one of those things where the referee didn't acknowledge what was happening inside the octagon at the time that it needed to be recognized. And I believe I haven't seen Abdul Razak Al Hassan tap before in a fight, so perhaps he's not accustomed to doing so, but also it may have just been caught up in the moment, you know, just trying to find a way out. I mean, we've seen fighters tap with their feet, right? I remember Brian Kelleher fighting, man, who was it? It's a few years ago. He had somebody caught in a deep guillotine choke, and they ended up um,
Oh yeah, he wrapped he wrapped the arms up with his legs, so the dude was just stuck, right? He couldn't move. I remember that. I remember also like Tim Elliott. Didn't he tap with his feet or he
Yes.
tapped somebody?
Yeah,
He was involved in one of those, right?
Back.
Interesting. Yeah, it's just yeah, man, I've seen it like shows live and those situations play out live inside of a cage where you're just scared because when the cameras like pan away, you don't see the fighter that's laying on the ground, like what's going on sometimes, right? Like they could be unconscious for quite a bit, and they're laying there, and you're like, what? The worst is like when someone gets like knocked out or submitted, and it's a late stoppage, and then they have to rush in there and pull the mouth guard out, or like pull their teeth, like pull their mouth open. That's scary, dude. I've seen mothers cage side watching their son go through that.
Ode Osborne tapping Brian Kelleher. That was the fight
Okay,
where he tapped with his legs.
perfect. Anyways, moving forward, Joe Pyfer. Did he call anybody out, J Spec? Have you seen any post fight stuff?
No, I have not. I once again, I apologize for when I'm in the space. I don't really hear the broadcast audio so much. So I just kind of rely, if they say anything good, I rely on people to tell me what was up, Sorry, I missed the audio during the broadcast.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Because you could be scrolling through Twitter, and that's what I do. I'm just scrolling through Twitter to just see like what's
Yeah,
going on, right?
no,
Half the time, that's what I'm doing. Joe Pyfer, he's on a winning streak, but is he ready for the top 15? No, I don't
no,
think he is.
slow
But
down.
yes,
And the right thing to do, like, let's be honest, we said this before. The right thing to do is move him along accordingly. There's what are you gonna do? Kill all your stars by just throwing them? Hey, since you got a 3-0, 3-0, let's put him against a top 10 in the world. Like, I don't know why we talk about Twitter or the internet as a whole. Fans ask for that kind of silly goose stuff. Like, why? So you can destroy a fighter. So we can destroy possibly a champion too soon by turning up the heat way too early. Like, no, it's not what the UFC
well,
now. The UFC needs young talent to come up and everybody become fans of them. That's what they need right now.
I have
well,
a matchup
yeah.
for Pyfer. I wouldn't be surprised if they book him versus Gerald Mearshart. I could see that happening right off the bat.
I think he beat Jeremy Milshard already.
A winnable fight. Let's see.
Did he fight him in his last fight?
Yes, I forgot.
Yeah.
He's coming off of that victory already, and I believe I bet on Pyfer inside the distance in that spot. I apologize having a.
Well, people are making good money off Pyfer, and let's just say that.
Gregory RoboCup.
Oh yes, I think that could be a very big possibility.
Be killed matchup.
Yeah, but I think they're putting him in prime position because it seems like Dana White really likes this guy, right?
That's
and
it.
I don't understand why that's important, but it is important. Like, I understand why it's important, but it should not be important. Like who Dana White likes or not likes, right? But it is, and I could see this scenario happening. There's a middleweight main event, right? Like maybe some ranked guys, lower ranked guys, top 15 though. One guy pulls out. They need somebody to jump in. They're gonna call Joe Pyfer, and he's gonna take a short notice fight against one of the top 15 killers. I can see this scenario playing out for him because when you are liked by Dana White, you kind of get that push to the head of the line a little bit. You know what I mean? And opportunities. And I can see Joe Pyfer getting that opportunity. What do you think, Mike?
I agree. We saw that with Cerrone how many times? And he was an American badass, right? I could totally see Pyfer taking that role on. And since Cerrone's retired, they need some new blood in there. And Pyfer, I mean, he goes for the finish. He puts himself at risk to be countered. He's very aggressive. He's kill or be killed. And also, he's a great story, too. And I know you didn't catch the post-fight speech, but he spoke about his story and how he doesn't want to be a role model, but he wants to be an inspiration for others. And he talked a little bit about how he literally came from nothing, and here he is trying to find his place in the world. So it was a beautiful speech. And he also, I believe it was Paul Felder, spoke about his documentary and how it needs to be watched. So during my day off, I'm going to go take a look at it tomorrow and watch it and see.
Is it on YouTube?
Joe Pyfer's story. I'm going to find it. I'll let you know when I find it. I'll send over the link.
I'm going to check that out as well. Yeah, Pyfer has a great story, man. I think, you got to take, as a fighter, you got to utilize every avenue, right, of promotion and take advantage of it. Because if you don't take advantage of it as a fighter, somebody will, right? So why not you benefit from your own story more than anybody else? Pfeiffer, do your thing. Um, yeah, Alassane, we'll see him in another crazy matchup because every time he comes to throw heavy, right? So he's an entertaining fighter. Um, Pfeiffer did the right thing by taking him to the ground because if he would have stood, you're taking a 50-50 chance with Alassane because he will spark you. He has heavy hands, man. Those hooks, if they land, I don't care who you are, you're gonna get punished. Yeah, so Pfeiffer, smart game plan, executed well, and got the big win. Um, there's nothing else really we can say more about Pfeiffer, and we'll go on to the next fight: Morono versus Joaquin Buckley. Buckley has dropped down, and we don't really see this very often from guys, but we see it from time to time where they drop down a weight class and look better than they did at the previous weight class. And Joaquin Buckley is one of those fighters. Um, much respect to him. Let's get the stats on the screen right here and see what.
Yeah, that's definitely an awesome feat.
Yeah, man. If you look at it, man,
Especially
he
the
did
body
everything.
type he had, right? Like it wasn't like he was fat and losing weight. He was very muscular. So to
Yeah.
train the body to lose that muscle correctly is awesome.
And it was like he did really well all around in this fight, right? Just everywhere. He like Morono's a tough guy to fight, right? He comes in on like he's just a guy that will get in your face and fight you. He'll take shots, right? He'll take risks, and Buckley took advantage of that and had a great performance. I thought. Morono, I've known him for so long, you know what I mean, and he's a guy that he takes the wins like his losses. Buckley, what do you do with him now? Like he's what 2-0 at welterweight now with two good wins. He's always shouting out, opponents that he wants. At what point, when do you give him somebody that he wants? You know what I mean? Or do you just give him like veterans, maybe two more times? I don't know. What do you think, J Spec?
I would like for him because I like him. I think maybe the easier path would be the more veterans route, and I'm trying to say that respectfully, because then he can creep in, maybe take out a couple veterans, and then get like a good strong shot, maybe higher up in the rankings instead of taking on someone that's more dangerous in the perimeter of the upper 10 to 15, right? Like,
I got a great one.
let's go.
How about Tim Means?
Oh,
Joe
yeah.
Buckley. Oh my God. Sign it. Shelby.
Yeah,
Get there.
that's a gritty veteran right there for real. And you know what's wild about that is that Morono fought him, I think, in his last fight and submitted him. Imagine him going in there and beating Buckley, right? That's the game we love, right? It's like you take that risk. You never know who's gonna beat who, right? MMA math is never right. So
yeah,
that's
and
actually
Buckley,
a good fight.
When we watched the fight, Buckley did not hesitate to shoot for the takedown and play in Morono's guard, which was impressive to me.
Yeah, Morono, high level black belt, right? Like he's been doing jiu-jitsu for a long time. He just likes to strike because he just likes to fight. But if you go to the ground, he knows what to do. But yeah, Buckley wasn't afraid of that. He just took it to the ground and just dominated, right? I saw a reaction from Morono saying that he just couldn't get it going, and Mike, I saw a tweet by you posted about Morono's weight cut. Maybe that had an effect on him getting started. He just never got into the motion because when your body's not right, even if you're a regular person, you wake up some days and you're just like, man, my stomach feels heavy, my legs are not moving like you normally do. Imagine a fighter waking up like that on fight day. It's scary.
Yeah. I stressed the importance of that weight cut. I watched all of the weigh-ins, and I noticed right off the bat when I saw Morono put his hands on his knees, and I've seen him weigh in multiple times. He's typically busting his ass, it seems like, behind the scenes to make the weight. He seems like he cuts a lot of weight. And then, something that stuck out to me, I remember listening to Daniel Cormier talk about how instead of using a sauna to cut weight once for one of his fights, he went to the hot tub, and he said that was like the worst decision he could have made. And you mentioned your legs feeling like jelly and how how tough that can make things, especially inside of the octagon. And it looked pretty clear that Morono was having a very difficult time there at the end of the second round and coming out for the third round. It was pretty clear he was gassed, but he was still trying his best. And that's one thing I'll say for Morono. When I watch him fight, he's a very cerebral fighter. He gives great interviews, and he is he's an intelligent fighter, and he fights to his strengths typically, but he can get caught in firefights. And you saw Buckley was taking it to him in a number of respects, and the cardio was a huge factor. I mean, we got to get back to that. I think the weight cut had a big impact on his performance. I'll say that.
Yeah, and when you pointed that out, right, I was thinking, man, he's had some bad weight cuts in the past and returned from that and did really well. But you're flipping the coin, right, with bad weight cuts. You're flipping the coin. Some days you'll wake up like, yeah, I feel really good. Some days you won't feel good and you just can't get started. And this is the result of it. Yeah, it's weird, man. This fight game, like when you go in and like ask fighter, that's why I like interviewing fighters, because I get to ask them whatever I want, man. Like next time I interview Alex Morono, I'm going to talk about that, right? I'm going to talk about the weight cut and ask him about the last fight. Why couldn't you get started? Was it the weight cut? What did you feel like when you woke up? You know what I mean? Like, who does interviews like that?
I know a guy.
Now, I want to complain
You're
about
that guy.
interviews now. Well, I don't want to say like I'm that guy, but there's probably people out there that are doing those types of interviews. But nowadays, interviews have turned into, what do you think of him? And what do you think of him? And what do you think of him? What do you think of him? That's what interviews have become now, right? What do you think of this matchup? Oh, now fucking, Drew Dober says that Islam Makhachev is gonna crush Charles Oliveira. Like, these are what
Clickbait.
it's what it's turned into, right? And like a
Yeah,
lot of these
I've been
guys,
calling it out. I've been calling
a
it
lot
out
of these
myself,
guys that are
bro.
doing interviews that are new, that are coming in, that's all they're doing, because they think like it's gonna get them farther ahead. And you think the fighters like that? You could ask fighters about matchups. You could ask them about something that's connected to them. But if you're just asking them about like random matchups that don't have nothing to do with like anything that they're doing, you're asking a flyweight about the heavyweight title fight. What does he know about the heavyweight title fight? Like, there's no. But if you ask a heavyweight about the heavyweight title fight, then that's a different connection to the fighter, right? But I'm just, this is a trend that I've been seeing in the last couple of years, and it's sad to see this because everybody's like, this is the new wave of MMA media. I'm the best reporter out there. This dude is like just started 3 months ago. You know what I mean? Like, I'm the best interviewer ever. Like, come on, chill out. Like, you don't have to say these things. Go out there and prove these things. That's it. Just, I don't know. It's just very odd. Like you said, Mike, clickbaity to the fullest now, right? And some of them are the kings of it, and some of them are just imitators of the king. Who's the king? You guys know. Anyways, let's move on to Drew Dober versus Ricky Glenn, man. Ricky Glenn, he's been through a lot in the past couple of years, right? And I think a lot of people will point to that fight against Grant Dawson, which they got a draw. And we see what Grant Dawson's been able to do, right? And look at Ricky Glenn and say, Ricky Glenn has that potential. But I think age is catching up to Ricky Glenn. J-Spec, did you see that in the fight?
I'm going to be honest, because that's how I roll. This is where I have to digress, and I have to lean on you, my guys. During our fight watch-along party, I had a wonderful guest, the legend of the fight game, Enson Inoue, Pride veteran, UFC veteran. And we were talking it up during this match, so I was slightly distracted, and this is not my best one to be talking about.
All right. Enson Inoue, shout out to Enson Inoue. He's a phenomenal guy, always doing good stuff out in the community as well. He represents MMA really well. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna say back in the day, the Pride days, he was a different Enson Inoue, right? Now he's like the older, more mature martial arts, like just spreading the seed. Respect to him. But
people from Hawaii and Asian Americans. What's up, Enson?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely Hawaii. He's full Hawaiian, without a doubt, right? Japanese, but he's from the Hawaiian Islands. Ricky Glenn, Drew Dober. This is a crazy backstory, right? They were matched up before the fight, so they rebooked this fight. But before that, Drew Dober made his MMA debut on a card that Ricky Glenn was headlining. Isn't that wild? That how that can like happen like 7, 8 years ago, and now they're fighting in the UFC. You know what I mean?
It's
It's just
amazing.
crazy to me.
That's
Yeah,
crazy,
and
dude.
they remember each other from then, which is even crazier because these guys get punched in the head for a living. I'm
Yeah.
serious. Like I've ran into many people that get punched in the head in the living, and they have terrible memories of like anybody that they meet, right? Because they meet so many people. Anyways, Drew Dober, he did what everybody expected, right? Did you, Mike? Did you place a bet on this one?
I did not, but I watched the fight, and this is a fight that could have been considered a late stoppage, to be honest. You saw, I believe, Drew Dober's kiddo was in attendance also. I saw them in the post-fight interview. Gave a great, Drew Dober gave a great post-fight interview, by the way. If you have a chance, go back and watch that. But man, Dober was finding the target early and often. And Ricky Glenn, I go back to, I believe the height, the apex of Ricky Glenn's career. I know the Gavin Tucker fight was awesome, but also his victory over Dennis Bermudez struck me. Dennis
Oh,
Bermudez at the time, he's one of the few fighters who have defeated Max Holloway, and um, he's a local guy. I've met him many times. Great for the sport, and he's retired now, but uh, Ricky Glenn, man, it seems like he was very slow and labored and was not moving his head off the center line. And that's something that you definitely don't want to be doing against Drew Dober, who was just standing in the pocket and using that left hand like a piston. And anytime he swung, he was landing. And it was you had Ricky Glenn's chin, which was on full display, but he was getting beaten to a pulp. So I thought that was a late stoppage, to be honest.
Mike, look at the app. Look at Drew Dover body, and look at Ricky Glenn's body. You see
Wow.
on the screen?
Wow. Yeah,
He
he's
looks like an
horrible player.
alien, like some alien that came down from outer space and landed, and he's just glowing, right?
Yeah.
Because he ate some radioactive.
Look at the percentage, the accuracy of the
Man,
significant strikes. 30 out of 53 strikes landed. That's a pretty high percentage, especially when you have a heavy hitter in Drew Dober. And by the way, I have to mention this also. If you go back, the California State Athletic Commission through the years, they've actually put out the numbers, what fighters weigh in at on the day of their fight, which
yeah.
after rehydration, that's a great stat. I know Tapology puts that out there also. If you click the links occasionally, if they fought in California, um, I love having those numbers, but I remember him, Drew Dober. They told him basically he had to fight at welterweight if he was coming back because he just adds too much weight after his weigh-ins, and he looked huge. Again, carries a lot of weight in his lower body also, because tree trunk legs, and he put it on Ricky
Yeah.
Glenn. So I think honestly that's the last we saw of Ricky Glenn in the UFC. I wish him well, and he's done a lot of great things for the sport, but also there comes a time and a place, and I believe we just saw it.
Shout out to Tapology. I love that they added the little icon for people that missed weight. So like when they missed weight. Like I love what Tapology, all the little things that they add to the website, because Tapology is number one. Like Sure Dog, respect to the people that work over there, but Tapology is the best for MMA records. And they've started to add like boxing, and you know what I mean. It's just expanding. They're gonna become the best place to go to find out information about a fighter. But shout out to them for adding that. They're always adding new things. At first, I didn't like the new layout that they had, but then now I'm like, oh, you can filter through it, so it's not that bad. But anyways, going back to Drew Dober. Dober, man, Dober dad, right? Everybody always talks about the dad version of every fighter. Dober dad comes in, but it's not like anything different from what he does in the past, right? Think about it. He just goes in there and, like you said, just throwing hammers, just throwing pistons at this guy. And yeah, when you got the speed advantage and you have the power too, it's gonna be a bad day for your opponent, man, because that speed will kill. And once you connect with speed and you have that firepower, man, it's an explosion on your face. It doesn't, yeah, I think Ricky Glenn's career has not spanned out like a lot of people expected it to, because he's a talented fighter and injuries have plagued him. Long absences have plagued him. And yeah, man, it's just, I said earlier, old age is catching up to him, but I think it's not really the old age. I think it's just his body has failed him, and there's a lot of fighters that happens to, right? Where they're talented, they're skilled, but their body just fails them, or they're very injury prone. Drew Dober, what do we do with Drew Dober? I hope Ricky Glenn, like he can get another fight, but I really doubt it because in his last 5, he's won 3-1 in his last 5. That's not a type of record that the UFC are like, oh, we'll give him another chance, right? But who knows? But I hope they do. I hope they do. But highly likely, UFC is super cutthroat. They don't give a shit about anybody, right? Except for themselves.
And let's be honest. Let's be honest. In this era, if you are an aging out veteran of the UFC, I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but it seems like there's other people paying for your services pretty darn good. So if he wants to continue fighting, I'm sure he'll get an offer.
Oh, for sure. Well, he'd go to regional scene and fight, man. There's always promotions out there. But anyways, going back to the UFC and them and how they operate, right? I'm gonna have to complain about them because you had Terrence McKinney without an opponent for weeks, but they're still telling him he's gonna fight next weekend, and then they just announced an opponent, right, for him. With all these contracts that they're giving out on Contender Series, how could you not find an opponent for Terrence McKinney to jump in? Like, it took you 3 weeks and him just like training for no opponent. You know what I mean? It's just, to me, it's like you got to treat your employees better than that. You got to treat the fighters better than that. This is the highest level. You know what I mean? You want the fighters to be professional at the highest level, but you're not professional at the highest level. That's really some bullshit, right? And we gotta talk about that. We gotta talk about this because
I got a next fight for Drew Dober.
Yeah,
if he's up for it. I'm not sure if the UFC would be on board, but Jamie Malarkey, Jamie Malarkey versus Drew Dober. I think
why not?
Drew Dober's coming off of a victory. Jamie Malarkey's coming off of what some might consider a controversial victory over John McDessie.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be a banger. That would be a banger. There would be blood spilled on the octagon within the first, I believe, minute and a half of that fight, but that would be one hell of a fight. Love to see it.
Yeah, Jamie Malarkey is good with anybody, right? Just any kind of matchup. Jamie Malarkey. Yeah, Drew Dober's in an interesting spot, right? He's not a top 15 fighter, but he's right at the verge of the top 15. He was a top 15 fighter. So anybody, like even is, I don't know, Bill Algeo, that was at featherweight, right? Hernandez?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, that was at featherweight. But yeah, there's a lot of matchups that you could go with Drew Dober. But Jamie Malarkey, that's a nice one. I don't know, Rob. You think of anybody else for Drew Dober?
Drew Dober. I mean, lightweight is, dude. The problem with me and when people go matchups is, one, I don't keep up with matchups because exactly what you guys are talking about. People fall out, people pull out, the roster gets switched. I don't have the mental capacity to be keeping up with the grind of matchups that come up and fall because it's too much. So I'm not aware of the entire roster who would be a good matchup for Drew Dober. But I'll tell you this: people love Drew Dober. They like to see him fight, and it really fucking doesn't matter who he fights. People are gonna want to watch it. He's at that level. I can say that confidently.
If Grant Dawson doesn't get a top 15 opponent, I could see Drew Dober. That actually would be not a bad fight. Right?
Good call.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a bad fight. Let's move on to the rest of the card. We'll get into like what were some standout performances. Oh, let's talk before we get into that. Okay, in the Drew Dober fight, Ricky Glenn clearly was he had his fingers inside the gloves, pulling him. Drew Dober's complaining about it. The ref does not do anything. He gives a warning. He held. How could you give a warning for a glove grab like that? I don't understand. And that's the same referee that did the late stoppage for Al Hassan. The week before, what happened to him?
Was that Mark
Something.
Smith?
Oh
That
no, it's
was?
not Mark Smith. Taglioni.
Okay.
He's the
Correct.
one who stopped the fight on that submission, and the
The guillotine
submission
that
wasn't
wasn't
on.
locked. Yep.
Yeah, he was there like for that. He's had a bad couple of weeks, man. Like sometimes I think they need to let these referees kind of go away for like a couple weeks and then regroup and come back. You know what I mean? Like every week reffing, I think it could get in the ref's head, like mistakes that they made. We've seen it, Mike, with Herb Dean. We saw him have a really bad stretch for a long time, right? Where he was doubting himself. Remember, he would go in and then come back out. Like,
Hesitate. Yeah.
yes, it's you can't have that, right? You know, I know they're humans, they make mistakes, but I think they do need to kind of. I'm not saying that anybody should be fired because Taglioni, he does a good job. It's just like he's on a bad. You know, everybody goes in a slump with their job, right? We need
I
to
like
have
when
them
when
regroup.
there's a pause in the action, he talks like very softly and slowly to the fighters. Have you noticed that? He
Yeah.
does it every single time. But I would love to see a point be deducted often when these fouls take place. If there's a multiple groin kicks, multiple eye pokes, multiple fence grabs, come on, you're creating an unfair advantage for fighters. If somebody's getting kicked in the groin multiple times to start a fight, we've seen that can impact them
That's
significantly.
how I would start a fight. I'd
Right,
just
you
go
get
straight groin shots, like 3 of them in a row, and be like, all right, I got advantage.
you get like 2 freebies before they
Yeah.
take a point away, and so we've seen a lot of the veterans out there. They'll. I'm not saying it's done purposefully, but you could get away with a couple and really set the tone for the first round. And another thing, I have to mention this too. I've literally watched thousands of fights just like you guys. And what happens when there's a break in the action, I firmly believe this, that the referees forget about what took place before that strike, before that illegal strike. If it happens midway through the round, it's almost as if that didn't take place, and then the rest of the round happens. We've seen if you go back and watch Zalmagulov. Wait, no. Yes, is it Zalgas? Ismagulov. No.
Mm-hmm.
What was his name? Paiva versus Zalgas. And there's a groin strike there, and I've seen it many at times happen where you're in the middle of the round, there's a break in the action, and deliberately you'll see the trajectory of the fight change dramatically. And whatever happens the second half of that round, the judges will score the fight for that fighter. Meanwhile, it doesn't matter when the foul took place. Prior to that, if another fighter's winning, that fighter typically does not win the round if they're doing well before the foul. But just something to point out. But yes, I do believe that these the referees should deduct more points than they are, especially when it comes to groin strikes. What are your thoughts on this? I know I don't want to take this too far off topic, but it's something
No. That is perfect. That's perfect. We discuss things here. I think that they should start taking half points for like instantly because the warnings happen backstage. The fighters tell you, like they told me all the time. Like the referees come back, they have a conversation about the fight, and they tell them exactly like this is what's gonna happen. Like if you're not defending yourself, I'm gonna say this, and you gotta start defending yourself, or I'm gonna stop the fight. Yeah, they get into these discussions, right? So I think when you get like groin strikes, fence grabs, I think like groin strikes and like eye pokes, you should take automatic half point. Like once it happens, half point, every single one. People will stop doing it, and you got a warning already. You know, what I mean, there's accidental, but it's got to be really, really accidental to just kind of like pause the action and then move on. Like Mike said, they forget that even happened and how that affected the whole round, the rest of the round. Right, it happened in the first minute. For 4 minutes, this guy's fighting with one eye. But there's no deduction, so though they don't remember that, right? So I think we need to start deducting like half points. for like eye pokes and in the groin strikes. Fence grabs a whole point because there's no excuse for that. Glove grabs like like what Glenn did, that should be a point deduction automatically.
Well, yeah. I mean, absolutely. But here's the thing. Here's the only part I disagree with you, John, is the half point thing. Because mathematically, if that half point is inserted, the outcome and the impact of the result is going to be the same. So just leave it to be 1 point. The other part I want to say is, yeah, going back to the refs.
But you don't want to impact it too much, though. Like you don't want to impact it too much, right?
But you can never gain back a half point somewhere else. So the negative half
you
point.
Can. Because you kick them back in the groin, that balances it out, right? Like fouls are gonna happen.
Well, that's the other thing. Just let someone was joking, but someone was like, "Well, with the nut strikes, why don't they just let the other person kick the other person in the nuts and then just let that let it?"
But then
we're even.
Then it becomes a clown circus type thing, right?
If you have the opportunity, watch Zalgas Zumagulov against Paiva. That's a fight where it's clear as day. Their groin strike. It's just pay attention to how the round is.
I'm on board for immediate point for eye pokes because that shit's serious and everybody's been warned. You know what's going to happen. People are going to lose points right away for the first 5, 10, 15 fights. People are going to bitch. They're going to go, oh, that's a chicken shit foul, chicken shit point. But guess what? It's going to stop. It's going to fucking stop. You know why? Because it does it in the NFL, NBA. Anytime there's dirty plays and stuff, they start nuking dudes right away. People grumble, but guess what? Those dirty plays go away. That stuff goes away. So yes, eye pokes. Now groin strikes, kicks. John, Mike, I don't know if you're trained, but John trained like, but there's when two men decide to kick. If you just two men decide to kick, there's a lottery chance of angles that you're gonna hit. You're gonna hit the other guy in the balls. So I don't think deducting a point for that. Maybe leave the. I hate it, but maybe leave the ball strike thing away. But the glove thing we're talking about, this fight, this problem, this dirty, I'm fucking calling it out. This dirty digging fucking just he was hanging from the man. He was hanging from the man like a fruit. Like, come on, this is ridiculous. This is crazy. That is automatic point. Anybody grabbing the fence, point automatic, because those are conscious decisions that everybody understands the rules already. This isn't 1995. We all know the rules, so play accordingly, gentlemen. That's my message.
And some people will say like, well, maybe he was buzzed, you know what I mean, and that's why he was just hanging on for life. And it was like, still, he was buzzed. He was hanging on for still his choice to grab the fence or grab the gloves or whatever foul. But let me give you the scenario. You get hit in the nuts, right? I guess you could get like if you're both kicking, unless you hit him in the nuts with the inside leg kick, right? And then the break of action, you guys go back into action, and the guy automatically starts inside leg kick again. Like he's targeting something, right? Like he's either targeting the inside leg or he's targeting something else, right? But you can't just like go back to the same thing that hit him in the nuts, right? You gotta switch it up a little bit. You gotta avoid that because that's a foul, man. Come on, you can't do that. Anyways, this is a thing that that the commission should be looking at and investigating a lot, but they don't investigate anything. They don't care. Like commissions are a complete joke, man. Jesus. I can't understand why they get paid all this money to do nothing for the sport. What, regulate it? What regulation? Right? It's just sad. And the fighters are the ones that, that get all the shit. Like they don't, it's anyways, the rest of the card. We had some good matchups, some big names. You had Carolina on there with a big win against Diana. I didn't, I don't know. But then you had the Vanessa Demopoulos decision win over Kanaka Murata. I heard some rumblings from people about that one that they don't understand how Murata lost that fight. Did you guys dissect that? Jessica, did you see that clearly?
Oh, I seen that clearly, and that was a clear robbery, my friend. There was nothing just or accurate about that scoring. I actually have somebody in the space was really nice enough to find me a bunch of statistics based on fan voting for that fight. Not so. First off, everyone live in my watch party had the fight scored for Murata. I personally also had the fight scored for Murata. Statistically, around the world, according to fan voting, the United States had 81% of the fans of America went for Murata, thought Murata won that fight. So I mean, it's just it's insane. It's insane. I mean, basically everyone around the world that I've talked to so far who watched the fight with their own face is confused by the outcome that the judges rendered. Other than that, Vanessa Demopoulos is cool and I like her. I mean, I don't like it sucks. It sucks because it's like, I mean, she won and I'm happy for her personally, but at the cost of Murata, who got something taken away from her, in my fair assessment. That's it.
And you know what's weird about it is in some fights, right? Let's put up the statistics up here. Let me put it up. Man, how come this thing doesn't? Oh, wait, sorry about that. All right, so if you look at the statistics, you know, she did outstrike her. You know, not by too much, but she did outstrike her for total strikes. Significant strikes, Murata had a little bit of an edge. But if you look at that control time, right, 10 minutes to 42 seconds. Some
but it was
judges are. Yeah.
I was saying it wasn't just control time too. She was very active. She had very nice lady ground and pound, which you don't see much.
The double hammer fist.
A la Sakuraba, I called it out. I was like, what the fuck? Like, that's great. Like, yeah, man.
5 of 6 takedowns, right? Like, she was effective, very effective, and she lost the fight. Judges are not scoring the same fights. Judges are not using the same criteria, right?
Yeah.
Like, how
Unanimous decision, I believe, right? And what was it, 30-27?
Oh, I don't know what the scorecard is. No way it could be. I thought it was 29-28.
Yeah,
but I think I'm not trying to rebut for no reason, but yeah. But either which way, dude, there was the replay. Even the replay during the broadcast had them slow-moing Murata, like passing slickly and stuffing her. Like, come on, those were the highlights of the fight. Those were the damaging shots we just witnessed. What are we scoring, dude?
I think Vanessa was kind of surprised that she won. Did you?
29-28
yeah,
across the
she
board.
looked like she like got her name called in a raffle or a lottery. She just won a contest. She was like, what? Sweet. Like, yeah, that was the reaction of a lucky winner.
Mm-hmm. Well, everybody that bet on Vanessa, that was a heavy underdog that hit.
Congratulations.
Yeah, right?
Congrats
and
to those. A closer fight than the odds suggested, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, right? Definitely. Yeah.
So they gave rounds 1 and 2 to Vanessa Demopoulos, and all 3 judges did. And the third round, all of them gave the round to Murata. Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting, right? It's just, man, I don't know. Like, we get these decisions, and I understand there's close fights and controversial decisions, you know, but like, we're consistently getting terrible results, right? Especially this unanimous. Like, if you watch the fight, you look at the stats as well. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what they were watching, but
another thing.
Yes.
Go for it.
I just get close fights that are close fights, and maybe you're just on the different side of the sofa or whatever. You know what I mean? But when everyone that I was with live, and then 89% of the broad spectrum public is all on, like, come on, there's what was that, consensus? That's the word, right? Like, come on, all the humans are looking at this with a pair of eyeballs and coming with one conclusion. How are you 3 individuals in this room not seeing that?
Another thing that must be mentioned, on the broadcast, they shared the live betting odds that Murata late in the third round was a minus 4,000 betting favorite. So that means you would have to lay $4,000 to win $100. And
oh my god,
they ended up giving it to Demopoulos. So interesting. I had no action on that fight, but yeah, it's just goes to show you different strokes for different folks, especially what they're gauging as far as the scoring criteria goes.
It is definitely different strokes for different folks, and you know, she got the win. At the end of the day, we're gonna a lot of people are gonna forget how she got the win. They're just gonna see that W next to the name, and promotions will just ride with that, because why would you put the controversy in it? There's no reason to. Yeah, Murata, man, she came back from a long layoff, and you know, she looked good. She looked good. She won the fight. She looked good. I think she needs just to be more active, man. She just doesn't fight enough. And if she does, she's a real threat to a lot of these girls in that strawweight division. Don't you believe?
I agree. She did take some damage in that fight. So if the judges are gauging damage, I could see how they went that route. But the wrestling credentials, I mean, no one can argue with that. Murata's got him.
Yeah, she's like straight up wrestler. Archie Long, he goes in there and he's made the shift to bantamweight. I think that was the smartest thing for him to save his career in the UFC, and takes out Johnny Munoz. Uh, Johnny Munoz is a gritty veteran. You know what I mean? He wins fights, he loses fights. He's always a tough fight for everybody. And Archie Long went in there and did his thing, got the decision. And JJ Aldrich got the decision win over Montana De La Rosa. Man, it's like those two names right there, JJ Aldrich and Montana De La Rosa, they've been around for a long time, right? And they're pretty much in the same position that they were when they started with the
They
UFC.
started. Yep.
Yeah, it's a trip, right? Like how like a fighter can just they're in the UFC still, but it's just there's no trajectory, right? It's like kind of like stocks, right? Just up and down and up and down. And
You're right, but in fairness, women have a longer leash than men. It's like eras, right? Like men could have bigger losing streaks in the previous era because just the way the organization of the sport was.
yeah.
Like you get carried longer.
What about Carolina, man? Coming back at the she's not a young woman, but she goes in there and takes out the younger woman. I just think Carolina's much more skilled than a lot of these girls that are coming up. You know, um, yeah, just looking at that matchup, it was like really a good matchup for her to just go in there and win this fight. And how could you not be a fan of Carolina, right? Like
Yeah.
she's just so soft spoken and super nice and sweet, but 37 years old and still doing it at in the women's divisions. How many 37-year-old women are still fighting?
Yeah, she
I,
still got
I,
it. She did get head and arm thrown. I don't know. Did you see that? There was
well,
the head and arm throw was
women's
effective.
MMA,
Yeah.
women's
But
MMA,
then she
man.
reversed position, ended up in full mount within about 10 seconds of that. So impressive. And it was a stylistic it was advantageous for her to take this fight. I'll say that. So happy for Carolina, though. She pours her heart and soul into this, and you could see after the fight, she mentioned that I believe her brother's fiance and her stepfather passed away during this
Man,
training camp, and
Mhm.
that she stayed in America to finish her training camp and dedicated this fight to them. So that was special to hear that on the mic, and it was she won, I believe, 37 on all three scorecards and put in a workmanlike effort. I mean, she had the grappling going, she was getting the better of the striking exchanges, and what could have been, if Joanna, former champion Joanna, wasn't around, she could have been up there. I believe they highlight that, or they had a card at MSG where they were up at the top of the billing. So she's had a tremendous career, and she could have given up. She could have walked away into the sunset, but she opted to hang around. I believe it was Yan Jiaonan that she ended up fighting, but she
yeah.
injured her eye at one point, and I thought that was it. I thought, that was the end of the road for her. But Carolina, props to you. And where does she go from here,
No,
stylistically?
she's taken some incredible damage, right? Like she got like it was one of the worst knockouts in women's history, right? The one that she took against Andrade, where she just was completely just annihilated, right? With that, like that's Andrade, right? She can do that. And then the Yan Zhaonan fight, she just took a beating for 15 minutes, right? Just her eye was, like you said, her eye was annihilated, right? Like just broken everything. And that's when she was on a 5-fight losing streak, but she was fighting the best girls in the world. Now she's on a 4-fight winning streak. It just shows you like you can come back from those terrible slumps, man. And she's doing it against the younger girls. She's beaten Diana Belvita, who is pretty young for the division. Vanessa Demopoulos, she beat her too. And then she beat Felice Herrig, who's a veteran. I think she's retired now. But a good win is that Silvana Gomez Juarez. She's a pretty good fighter, right? And she's beaten 3 pretty much so-called prospects in the division, and she's 37 years old. So What do you do next with her, Mike? Like, what do you do?
Excellent question. I must mention though that Gomez Juarez fight, that was the fight where I believe it took place in Texas, where the judges they had the scorecard out hanging over the octagon fence, and they were
Oh
making adjustments to it. So
yeah.
that was a controversial decision. Um, but as far as the 100, let's see, man, this is 115-pound division is wide open right now in the UFC. Good question. Very good question. She's getting up there in age. Man. Rob, do you have any prospects for Carolina?
No, but I will say this, that fans really gravitated to this win. They're really feeling it right now for her. I think obviously she's got a streak going, but she's got like a little bit of a spark with the fans. I think this is a time where the promotion could roll the dice and use it for a push, or maybe like a strong B side of another matchup. I don't know. I just think right now she's hot. The stock's hot. She's already been accredited, like you said. Her we know she's a good fighter. Now she the streak going, boom, she's 37. Like, why not? Like, from a promotion point of view, let's squeeze this lemon. Let's get the juice out of
Ooh,
it.
I see the Natalia Silva matchup. I also want to throw one out there. Loma Bunmi would be a solid matchup at
Oh, that would be a good striking matchup right there. It'd
Short
be
Shelf, if
interesting
you
to
watch.
see who utilizes their
Yeah,
grappling because
I like
both of
that.
them have utilized it in the past, right?
Yeah, I would love to see that in the clinch. That would be awesome.
All right.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so there goes the card right there. Let's see. Okay, so Jin was saying a little correction. Silva Gomez versus Kelvin fight happened at UFC 281 at MSG.
Oh,
So what fight was that? Oh, that was the MSG. Yeah, where the dude changed the scorecard in the cage. You're right. That was MSG. That
okay,
was
okay.
MSG. Yeah.
By the way, I must mention one other fight. We didn't discuss it, but the Nate
Mm.
Maness, the Mateus Mendonce fight, that
Yes.
was that was awesome. I wanted to get your take on it as far as the spamming of leg locks for Mendonce there. If he seemed to kind of sell out for that technique, and he was taking on a fighter that was much longer and familiar with fighting on the ground as well. And Maness was just using his length to basically, it was like shooting fish in a barrel
Mm.
from short distance there, and ended up taking the shoot box fighter out. That was a fight that really stood out to me because you had Maness, who was a significant underdog in that spot. What did you guys think of that bout?
Yeah, you should like. I think with leg locks, if you don't have it and you're not in the right position, like you should not continue. You should let go and try to get back to your feet or switch position. Something you gotta like. You can't just go for the same thing over and over again because eventually you're gonna get hit hard. You see what happened to Gary Honan, when he just committed too much to the leg lock and just got knocked out by Tom Lee. And we've seen that in the past. Ryan Hall, wasn't he knocked out by
Mm-hmm.
Topuria
Mm-hmm.
chasing the legs? You know what I mean? Like it works out sometimes, but when it doesn't, you're in some deep, deep trouble and you're
Yeah,
taking some
and he
serious
he
damage.
wasn't using it to get back to his feet. He was
Yeah.
actually trying to lock in the submission, and he was selling out for it, and it ended up costing him the fight. And I believe that's due to him being 24 years of age, and maybe he's
Okay.
able to pull it off in the gym, but against a fighter inside the octagon who has experience, that was kind of tough to watch, to be honest, because I believe Mendonce, I mean, especially coming off of the win over Javid Basharat, who's a very talented fighter. Oh, well, sorry, the loss to Javid Basharat, where he held his own and got his grappling going in that fight. But man, tough scenes. But if you were on the Maness side, cheers to you. I know I predicted the fight not to go the distance and lock that bet in, so that was a nice score for me. But great fight, and both of those fighters, 125 pounders too. Love that division.
Um, Manes, man, the only thing that scares me about him is this was a great performance, but I don't know if in the long run it's the best thing for him because his weight cut, he looked like the machinist, right? Like I don't know, maybe he found a loophole, maybe he found the secret sauce of like how to cut weight to 125 and be able to, because look at him, I think he probably jumps into that cage well over 140. I
Oh
think
yeah.
that his size advantage is something that he really sees as an advantage in that division. But we'll see if that catches up or not. We got to watch that closely, right? Because how many weight cuts can you do where you look like you're on death's door? And look, you see what happened to Connor, right? He kind of looked like the same when he went to 145, right? And then after what? When's the last time he fought at 145? Was it the Aldo fight?
Yeah.
2
Mendez. I
years
believe.
ago.
Was it Mendez?
Mendez. He beat Aldo was after Mendez.
Aldo.
So I think it was the
Yeah,
Aldo.
Aldo
Aldo. Oh my
vacated
God.
belt. That was it.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
long
right.
time ago.
Yeah. So like you see, like after a while, you just don't want to drop back down, right? And Connor just left the division at the perfect time, right? He didn't have to do those weight cuts. Well, he's a different situation.
Yeah,
But
no
anyways,
problem.
Madness,
Yeah.
watch him closely.
I
He got them death touch in his hands, man. Like that's without a doubt.
Hey man, week after week, sometimes we see some good young prospects, and I say this line of, "Hey, it's good to see a young prospect face somebody, face adversity, make a change in their game plan, adapt." Hey, I give credit where credit's due. I'm gonna have to do the opposite. Mr. Mendonch, if dude, that was kind of an atypical young fighter mistake. Like, I have a game plan, I'm launching it, not going well. Oh, guess what? Double down on it. Shit, it's really not going down. Let me triple down on it. Oh, I'm eliminated. Like, yeah, this is young warrior mistake. Good luck next time.
For sure. And everybody that's still with us, make sure you guys go download the AllStar app, make picks, join JSpec's league, and win prizes. He has the Demetrius Johnson autograph poster for the prize this month, I believe. This month, you
Yep.
said?
Champ of this month will win it.
That's
Yep.
right. Next week, or in 6 days or whatnot, you got Youssef versus Barbosa at featherweight. That's a banger of a headline, right? That's a beautiful matchup. But there's some really good matchups on this card. I wouldn't skip this card because there's Jonathan Martinez versus Adrian Yanez, right? That's a banger, dude. That's like
That's a fight.
striker's delight, right? And then you got Christian Rodriguez versus Cameron Simon. That's a really good fight too, as well.
I know folks have used that term fraud checked. I believe.
Fraud check. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh my
Didn't
God.
C-Rod quote unquote fraud check as
Fraud
the
checked.
MMA Twitter?
Yeah.
Who did he
Yes.
fraud check last time out?
And
The
Raul Rojas.
Rosas. Yeah, Rosas.
And then Rosas returned before he did and got a win and made that loss disappear. Nobody cared about that.
Nobody
right?
cares.
Like, he's still in the best position ever, right? But C-Rod, very talented fighter. He has a huge test against Cameron Simon. Cameron Simon has shown that he is one of the guys, one of the prospects, man, undefeated as well.
Definitely.
Michelle Pereira is going to be on this card. I think people forget. And he was supposed to fight Marc-Andre Bollard, but Bollard pulls out. Andre Petrovsky, who was actually out here last week, and I saw him at the gym a couple of times, talked to him. I was going to interview him, but then he was on a plane back to the States because he's going to jump in short notice against Michelle Pereira. That's an interesting matchup right there. Striker versus grappler, right?
Gas tanks will be tested.
Exactly, right? And then Darren Elkins versus TJ Brown. What a crazy matchup that will be. That's coming up on the card. And, and there's a bunch of women's matchups as well. Like, I think there's like 1, 2, 3, 4 fights. This card is actually not as long as the other cards, but it's okay. We got some good matchups. So next week, you guys tune in for the UFC. We'll be back 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, I believe.
That's right.
And we'll be breaking down everything. And we always appreciate you guys for joining in. You guys are watching the replay. Leave your comments in the comments section, and we'll get back to you. We'll go follow Mike at Mike's MMA Picks. He's putting out great content always. Check out his live chat. Check out his podcast. All of that stuff. It's good information. And JSpec, he's running the spaces on Twitter. He's going to be doing all the shows. Also, what is it? Do you have any Twitter like Q&As you're doing coming up, or anybody in line?
I can't say exactly for sure, but if you just come to our watch parties, be part of our community, guys come when they come. I can't always guarantee it, but we might have Zach Pauga joining us next week. So
There you go. There you go.
there you go.
Look out for that on Twitter. Any last words, Mike, before you head out?
Nope. Thank you for having me on, and looking forward to breaking down the fights next week as well. And appreciate the platform and appreciate all the work that both of you guys do. Thank you, John, for the interviews, and Rob, keep doing your thing. Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, good vibes, man. Good vibes, and I always love the Mike Tyson punch out autograph in the background. That's solid. That's a solid. Hey, if you did a giveaway for that, people would be all over it, man. I guarantee you.
Shit,
But there's no
understood.
giveaway. You got to keep that one, Mike. You got to keep that one.
My kids love it too much.
Yeah, for sure. But anyways, everybody, good vibes, and have a good week. And we'll be back next week for